So we continue with Hilchos Gerus, and that's on Daf Mem Vav Beis on the bottom. One line up. Tanu Rabbana, Misha Bob Omagani, Yochel Kablenu. Someone comes and says, as far as we knew he was a guy. Tosfos says that's interesting. Tosfos that says that if you don't know anything about him and you could accept him as a Jew, which is has a lot of ramifications nowadays. That happens and causes a lot of problems sometimes. Of course, if you're in the Varer and you find that someone's a goy, so it's a goy. But when he first comes and he's assumed to be a Jew, he comes into shul and he says he's Jewish. You don't have to make a whole investigation. As far as marriage, of course, maybe we should. But that Sugi doesn't talk about that. But here, the Mefarshim says talking about that. We thought that we knew as far as we knew that he's a goy, and he said that I was Megayah. Yeah, and he says he went to a certain bezdin, he was Megayah. So can you trust him? You might think that you trust him. So there's a pasuk in this week's parsha. It talks about not to announce a ger, not to pain a convert, and it says the mitzvah of loving a ger. That's this week's parsha. So the was no darshan it. So it says so since it said the word etcha, only if you know for a fact that he's a ger, it has to be etcha. It has to be that you know it. It's by you. It means that you have affirmed that he was Megayah. It says etcha. So etcha tells you like it's more concentrated. Dafka if you know. Dafka if you know. But there is some kind of a testimony that he could bring that does show that he's ger, and the more is going to say it has to be some chiddush. Of course, if you have mamash edim, it's not a chiddush. If he has witnesses that say that they know that he testified that he was Megayah in a bezdin, so you don't have a chiddush about that. But the more is going to say there's a chiddush at this point, and the Rosh is learned down from the Chiyah Gur. Take out the next words. It's called the Chiyah Gur. That the Chiyah Gur is mashma any kind of a ger, not dafka itcha. So there's a leniency and a stringency. Stringency as you do have to know, but you don't have to have mamash testimony. We'll see later on that even a loose testimony is also good enough. The pasuk continues ba'atzachem. Chiyah Gur etcha ger ba'atzachem. Ba'atzachem means in Eretz Yisrael. What does gerus have to do with Eretz Yisrael? So you might think that you only can be Makabel Ger in Eretz Yisrael for some reason. Why would that be? Tosfos says because maybe in Chutz La'aretz Choshesh more that he's going to turn sour. Eretz Yisrael, we'll see soon the Gemara says that Eretz Yisrael is a reason why he might want to be more of a Ger in Eretz Yisrael, as we'll see. And the Chutz La'aretz doesn't have those benefits, so he might be Choshesh that he's going to turn sour. That's what Tosfos seems to say. So you need a person to say that there's such a thing as Gerus even in Chutz La'aretz. The Chutz La'aretz Minayin Talmud Lama Itcha. The Gemara will talk about that. It says very Itcha B'Chiyah Gur Itcha Ger V'Darshan Itcha means B'Mufsik. That you have to know that he's a ger. And here the Gemara says Darshan in the Chamakom Shitcha, any place that he is. The Gemara is going to change that soon because we can't use the same pasuk twice. But so far, what does it say? That you can have a ger even in Chutz La'aretz, but there is a lot. But you do have to have some kind of a testimony that he was Megayah. You can't trust him on his own. We're going to see that the Gemara is going to talk about it. The Gemara is going to talk about what kind of testimony you need. Of course, you don't need a full testimony, then it wouldn't be a chiddush. But the Gemara says, what does it have to say about Ba'aretz? Ba'aretz means Ba'aretzechem. The pasuk on one hand does say Ba'aretzechem, about Eretz Yisrael. The matter way it tells you not to have Eretz Yisrael. So why does it say Eretz Yisrael b'chlal? It should just say B'chiyah Gur Itcha. Ger. Don't talk about Ba'aretzechem. If anyway the pasuk is going to be Mar B'chutz La'aretz also, it could be a Ger. Ba'aretz Serach Lavi Rai, B'chutz La'aretz saying Serach Lavi Rai, did Rabbi Yehuda. So really holds at this point we said that he has to be proof and you don't trust him. It's only in Eretz Yisrael. But in Chutz La'aretz you don't have to bring a proof because he doesn't have it. We don't assume that he has any ulterior motive in lying. We're not talking about ulterior motive in becoming a ger, but is he lying? Is he really a goy? And it's coming to say that he's a Jew. So in Chutz La'aretz, according to the situation of then, there would be no reason that he would have a reason to lie that he's Jewish. But in Eretz Yisrael, there might be a reason that he would lie. He has benefits in Eretz Yisrael that he wouldn't have as a goy. So that's when you have to bring a proof. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's so far as Rabbi Yehuda is talking, and he holds that the din that it says that he has to bring some kind of a proof, some kind of a testimony that he was Megayah is only in Eretz Yisrael, because over there there's a shot that he's lying. But in Chutz La'aretz you wouldn't have to. If a guy comes and says that he was Megayah in a certain bezdin, you could trust him. But the Chachamim argue, even in Chutz La'aretz also he has to bring a proof. That's the end of the brisa. Gemara now it's going to analyze the brisa. It says, the brisa says if he brings testimony, brings mamash witnesses that he was Megayah, so you believe him. You don't need a pasuk for that. If it's mamash edim that says that they know he's Megayah in a certain bezdin, you don't need a pasuk to say that you trust him. Rav Sheshes, the Amri Shamanish and his guy Bezin Shaploni, that they don't mamish say that they know. They weren't not that they saw, not that they were there, but they heard. They heard that he was a guy in a certain Bezdin. That's good enough. You might think they don't trust such kind of aidus. Usually that it wouldn't be good enough of an aidus that they know, they heard about it. But here it seems to say that it is good enough. That's what Al-Gemara says, and the Rif doesn't bring it down. The Rosh has a shot that maybe this only is the point of Yehuda. Maybe we are going to have full testimony that they know for sure that he was Megayev. If they does say Shamanu, maybe it's not good enough. But in Al-Gemara does say Shamanu is good enough. The Brisa continued, Ba'aretz, Ba'atzechem, in the yellow Ba'aretz, B'chus Menayin, Tamalam, Yitcha, B'chol Mokom Shitcha. So the Gemara is going to ask now that the word Itcha we darshan. The beginning of the Brisa said that Itcha tells you that you have to know, B'muchsak, you have to know that he is, you can't trust him, you have to ask, you have to investigate, you have to have testimony. Then it says from the word Itcha we also learn out that he can even become a ger, even in Chus La'aretz. So the question is that it's been used already. Va'afikte, you used the pasuk already for one drush. You can't use it for two drushes. The answer is Chada Me'etcha. V'Chada. Now I guess it says Me'imach. The Gemara says that it's a mistake. It should be Me'etchem. The pasuk says in the next pasuk it says V'chiagor etchol ger b'asachem lo sanu also kezroch mikem ye'agor etchem. So it says etchem again. So it says etcha and it says etchem. That's a better ger. So the Gemara says he says Rashi's ger says tamua. So we'll go with the Gemara that it says etcha and it says etchem. One is to tell you that you have to know that he's that you have to know that he was Megayah. You can't just trust him. You have to find out from some kind of a testimony. And Itchem tells you that there's such a thing as gerus even in Chus La'aretz. The Brisa continues. That even in Chus La'aretz also he has to bring proof. You don't believe him on his own. What did the Rabbanan do with the point that it says Ba'asachem? The Rabbi said that since it says Ba'asachem, he said that only Ba'asachem do you need to bring a proof. The pasuk way with darshaning and saying that you have to bring a proof. You don't trust him, but that is limited only to Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, he has to bring a proof, but in Chus La'aretz he doesn't have to bring a proof because there's no reason that he should lie. But the Rabbanan say it's not true that even in a Chus La'aretz also he has to bring a proof. So why does the pasuk say something about Ba'asachem? There's no difference between Eretz Yisrael and Chus La'aretz according to the Rabbanan. The answer is only boy laid the filu baretz makabel and gerim. The chiddush is that you accept gerim even in Eretz Yisrael. Not a question about believing him, but do you accept Bezdin when someone wants to become a ger? There's not to say that you only accept him in Chus La'aretz, not in Eretz Yisrael. Why not? It's not kedai techamenim b'shum tivus of Eretz Yisrael. Come a guy, maybe they have ulterior motive. We had before Gemara a long time ago about Tezvov Tezayin. Over there spoke about maybe he has ulterior motive about marriage or other reasons. So here the Gemara says also there might be a reason that Eretz Yisrael in the good times tivus of Eretz Yisrael. Zavas Chalav U'Darash. They're so good about Eretz Yisrael that's the reason why he's Megayah. So therefore, you might think that only in Chus La'aretz do you take a ger because he has no ulterior motive. But in Eretz Yisrael that there's ulterior motive, maybe you don't accept him. Not a question of believing him. Believing him if he was Megayah. But maybe you don't accept him b'chlal. Maybe Bezdin wouldn't accept a ger in Eretz Yisrael. And now the Gemara says, even though nowadays we don't have this ulterior motive, Eretz Yisrael is not producing what it did, what it was supposed to. So it's Chalav U'Davash. There are other benefits that it is in Eretz Yisrael to be Jewish, that he gets all of these matnas aniyim, that the people who have fields, so they leave gleanings for the poor, shikha, peya, ma'aserani. So this might be an ulterior motive. He wants to become a ger in order to get all this kind of tzedakah, that he can become a ger even in Eretz Yisrael. So we finish the machlokes. Everybody holds he can become a ger both in Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. That everyone agrees to, as far as becoming a ger. As far as trusting him that he was Megayer, he comes and says, I was Megayer in front of a Bezdin. Do you trust him? So Rabbi Yehuda says, the Chutz La'aretz you do trust him, only in Eretz Yisrael you don't trust him. And he has to bring witnesses, and the witnesses doesn't have to be mamish witnesses, just that they heard that he was Megayer in a certain Bezdin. And according to Rabbanan, he has to bring proof even in Chutz La'aretz. If he comes and says, I was Megayer, we knew that I was a guy, and he says I was Megayer in a certain Bezdin, it wouldn't be enough. He has to bring a proof. According to Gemara, it says, before that, even a proof that they just said we heard that he was Megayer in a certain Bezdin is good enough. Maybe la'alacha it's not good enough. He has to bring mamish witnesses that know that he was Megayer. Rabbi asked about documentation. If they give documentation that he was a ger, probably that's also good. Whatever they do nowadays in order to affirm that he was Megayer, but he has to have good proof that the Bezdin accepted him as a ger. The Marsa Kasha Pshita, Rabbi Yochanan says halacha is like the Rabbanan. Of course, it says Rabbanan. So Yehuda and the Chachamim always be passed like the Rabbanan against a Yachid. Yachid Rabban halacha k'Rabbanan. What's the chiddush? Ma'od tema mishnah time of Rabbi Yehuda the Kamasai like Troy Kamash on the Psukim. The drushes fit better according to Rabbi Yehuda that he says Ba'atzechem is mashma dafka this halacha of b'muchsa gitcha is dafka Ba'atzechem. The Rabbanan they say that it means even Ba'atzechem you're not choshish for ulterior motives. That's not the little dochak in the pasuk. You might think that the pasuk reads better according to Rabbi Yehuda. Kamash you do pass like the Rabbanan. So that was the first That was the first sugya that spoke about there's the Geras both in Eretz Yisrael and the Chutz La'aretz, and if he comes and says he was Magai, you don't trust him. According to Rabbi Yehuda, in the Eretz Chutz La'aretz you would, but you pass on to Rabban, but even the Chutz La'aretz also you don't trust him, you have to bring testimony. What kind of testimony? Our Gemara seems to say if they heard that he was Magai in the Bezdin is good enough. It could be a halacha that he has to have mamish testimony that he was Magai at a certain Bezdin. New Gemara. Tanu Rabbana, top line. You should judge righteously between man and his brother and Gero. The Pasuk Shan, the Pasuk means between his neighbor. But the Gemara is asking a ger, something about a ger, a convert, and it says something about a shvatatem. And the Pasuk Shan again is talking about that you should judge favorite, you should judge justly between a person and a ger. But the Gemara is asking that it's talking about the actual gerus, a drash. That it's talking about the actual gerus. The gerus has to be like a mishpat. We found out Rabbi Yehuda, Gershon is guy, Bezdin, Habayz a ger, and all of them are small ger. Same as we said yesterday, the end of the page yesterday, you have to have three people. That you have to have a Bezdin in order to make him a ger. He can't do it on his own. Even though he wants to be Jewish and he's accepting all the mitzvahs and he goes to the mikveh and everything, not good. He has to have a Bezdin in order to make the chalos, in order to affect conversion, it has to be with a Bezdin. A story happened that a guy came to Rabbi Yehuda and said, I became a ger on my own. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda, you can see right away that's not good, it's not a ger. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda, yesh l'cha eidim, at the test you have eidim. Now this sounds a little tricky. It sounds like if he has eidim, then it is going to be good. We'll see in a second that it's not the pshat. That's not what Rabbi Yehuda wanted. But he was probing to see if there were eidim. Amalei lo, I have no eidim. I was Megai on my own with no eidim. Yesh l'cha banim, do you have children? Amalei, hey, yes, I have children. After I was Megai on my own, I'm married and I have children. Amalei, now not the lips of Asatzmach, be out the name of lips of Asbanach. So he's not a ger. He did it on his own, he's not a ger. But the fact that they have no witnesses, so we don't have to trust him that we do trust him as far as himself. He has the manas as far as himself is concerned, but he's not trustworthy in order to affect his problem on his children. It means as far as we know, his children are Jewish. As far as we know, this person is Jewish, his kids are going to cheder, everything seems to be good. He comes and says that my gerus wasn't good. So we don't trust him. He's not believed to parcel his children, and the children are going to be considered still Jewish until proven otherwise. Of course, if we find it out, so then that they're not Jewish, they're not Jewish. Tais says from here about the mother. Who's the mother? Everything should depend on what the mother is, not what the father is. Okay, put that aside. But the point is saying that the father doesn't have, he's not believed to say that his children are not Jewish. He can say on himself that he's not Jewish, and even though, of course, the ramifications will be if he's not Jewish, his wife is not Jewish, whatever. So then the children are also not going to be Jewish. He doesn't have belief. We don't trust him. He doesn't have, what's the word, not belief? What's the word to say? He doesn't have, how would you say that in English? Trustworthiness. Okay. So we don't trust him as far as that goes. And as far as he's concerned, we're going to consider him a goy. But his children, until proven otherwise, they're going to be considered Jewish.
Is this in the category of the Gibura?
Maybe. That he says what he says, but we don't trust him as far as other people are concerned. The problem about this because we find that Rabbi Yehuda holds that a person is trusted even as far as his children go, as far as their lineage. But Tanya, it says by a Bechor, it says Kias Bechor ben Asnuyot Yakir. The person has two sons, and he says who's the Bechor. So he has the money to say who's the Bechor. He doesn't think it's a Rush. He's saying that he's not Jewish. Yes, not an Aveir.
He said he's Megai by himself.
He's Megai without a Bezdin.
He's showing that Maharis. He's showing he doesn't know Allah. He's not making some rush.
We don't know. It seems here that we would have assumed that he's Jewish. Like Tyson says a few times that a few proofs maybe that if a person comes and we don't know different, he says he's Jewish, you do believe him. So we were assuming he's Jewish, but now he comes and says that my gerus was not good. So now he's believed to say that he's not Jewish, but he doesn't affect his kids. We must Akasha that the Yehuda holds that a person does have trustworthiness to say that his children are not kosher. It says Yakir, but that's talking about to say which child is the firstborn. As far as Yerusha goes, so how do we know who the firstborn is? So it says Yakir that the father is supposed to recognize, so to speak, the eldest as getting two portions, but the Gemara says he's the one who gives the information to others to know who he is. That he's the one who we ask who's the firstborn, and he's even though we don't have Eidim, we don't have witnesses. Who's the firstborn? That he has the trustworthiness to the authority to say to say that he's the firstborn. But Rabbi Yehuda goes further, not only to say that he's the firstborn, he also has the authority to say on his children that they're not kosher. That he also could say that his children are apostle. If he's a Kohen, he could say that my son is a chalal. He's a ben grusha. I'm married. He's the result. He's the product of a union that I had. I'm a Kohen. I had a union with a grusha, with a divorced woman or chalutza, and he's apostle for kuna. So not only is he believed as far as his son goes to say that he's firstborn, good things, he's also believed to say to downgrade him, to say that he's apostle. If so, he should also be believed to say that his son is not Jewish. The same way he says to himself, I'm not Jewish, it should have ramifications also for his son. Over there, the Chachamim argue. He's only Neman for his Bechor, but he's not Neman to say that his son is apostle. But the question is Rabbi Yehuda himself. It seems here that we do pass like Rabbi Yehuda, according to the letters here, it says Rabbi Yehuda, even though the Chachamim argue, but Rabbi Yehuda himself, to be a contradiction, that here he says he's not believed on his son to say that he's not Jewish, and Yehuda himself says that he's believed to say that his son is a cholol, apostle the kuna. What's the difference? Rav Nachman Yitzchak, big difference. If you're Jewish and you're saying your son is apostle, okay, so you're neman because you're Jewish. But once you say that you're a goy, so a goy is not believed. The goy doesn't have any nemanos, so we don't trust you. So with Shikascha, according to you, that you're saying that you're a goy, we don't trust you. That, and it's the same thing about your children. As far as we know, your children are Jewish till now. Now you're saying that you're a goy, so you don't have any namanos. So even though, as far as saying the child is possible, as far as a mamza or as far as cholo, we do believe the father. But as far as saying that he's a goy, because I'm a goy, so once he says he's a goy, so he doesn't have namanos. That was Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Ravina sticks to the Pashup Shad that he's not believed on his children, and the kasha was he's believed on his children. So he changes, he edits a little bit the gears from the brisa. Not that I spoke about Eidim and Banim, but Banim and Bnei Banim. Do you have children? Yes. Do you have grandchildren? And he said also yes. So then he said, if you have grandchildren, then you're not believed. It means even according to what we said, that the Ruda says a person is believed, has authority and trustworthiness to paskin about his son, but not about a grandson. So his namaras only goes one generation. Taisa says it can't be that, I don't know how Taisa says it, but Taisa says that once he has a grandchild, he's not even believed about his child also. It means he can't separate between the child and the grandchild, and both of them he's going to be not believed. If he has no grandchildren, only a child. If he has only children and no grandchildren, then he's believed to say to the apostle. As far as the chalal also, but once they have grandchildren, and he's not believed for the grandchildren, so then he's not believed even for the children either. And both of them are going to be kosher. I don't know. That is only in Amanis for his children, not for his grandchildren. So the words for us in the Brisa say a little different. It says that a person is believed about a young child. The words, the way it says it is, he's believed on a young child, but he's not believed on an adult child. But that the Gemara says, don't take it literally. That's not the point about Benot Katan and Benot Gadol. Don't take it literally. It doesn't mean young and old. Lo katan katan mamish, lo gadol gadol mamish. The words shouldn't be taken literally that it means young and old. Ela katan v'yesh lo banim zeh gadol, gadol ve'eno banim zeh katan. When we say a young and a small child and a big child, it means does the child have children yet? As long as the child doesn't have children, that's called a ben katan, and he has namanis to say that a child is puzzled. But once the child has children, so then he's not believed. So there's a brayso like Ravina that says the chiluk between children and grandchildren. But the Gemara does say that Allah is like Rav Nachman Yitzchak, that is not believed to say that his children are goyim. And the Kashi is the Brisa says perish like Ravina, there's a chiluk between children and grandchildren. But Tani Kavah said the Ravina, the answer is Ahula Inyan Yaki Ritmar. As far as the Yaakov, we said before that he's Jewish. The question only is if the children are Mamzerim and the children are Chalal. Over there, it's true that he's believed to say his children. He's not believed about the grandchildren. All that's true. But Rav Nachman Yitzchak came in with a new chiddush that once he says that he's a goy, so a goy doesn't have any namanas. So over here, he's not going to be believed even as far as the children go. So that's the end of the sugya. Again, how does it go? First of all, Rav Yehuda says you have to have a bezdin. That's the main point, that you have to have a bezdin. Not a bezdin that doesn't take effect. Even if we would believe him, even if there would be Eidim, on the contrary, if the Eidim, for sure he's not Jewish, you must have a bezdin in order to make the effect of the gerus. Now the rest of the sugya goes, is he believed as far as himself? Yes, surely. And now, even though we thought that he's Jewish, now he comes and says, I'm not Jewish. So we mark him off that he's not Jewish. And then the question is about the children. So the Gemara comes out like Nachum Yitzchak, that once he says that he's a goy, so he's not Neman anymore, doesn't have authority to say anything. We don't believe him. He's not a witness. He's not a testimony. So therefore, the children are going to be considered Jewish further, unless, of course, if we're going to investigate and find out that what he said is true, so then the children also not going to be Jewish. But on his word doesn't carry any weight once he's a goy. As far as other cases of being testifying about his children that they're kosher, that they're bechor, that they're ben grusha, that they're mamzer. So the Gemara says that he is believed also to pass his children. The Chachamim argue, it seems he passed like Rabbi Yehuda, that he is believed to say that his children are not kosher as far as mamzer or cholol, and that the Gemara says, but dafka before they have children. Once they have children, it's already questions their grandchildren, and he doesn't have any nemanis as far as the grandchildren go. So then he's not believed on them, and Taisus says he's not even believed about his children either. He wouldn't be able to pass his children once there are other people that are also involved. If that's all good, the rest of the Gemara is all easy now, smooth sailing now, and it comes about the sugya, the protocol that you do when a ger comes to be megayah. And this is quite famous, but here we'll learn it inside. Tanu Rabbana, ger shabolis gayah, bezman hazeh, omim lo mari yisrael shabolis basilas gayah. Yata yodeh sheYisrael bezman hazeh devuyim d'chufim schufim u'muterofim v'yisurim bon aleim. Why coming to become a ger? Don't you know that Jews have big problems nowadays? Bezman hazeh means when Jews are not having it good. It could be nowadays it doesn't apply because Jews are having it quite good, and yeah, but there could be a lot of reasons. You see, nowadays many people that want to be Jewish. There are many people that want to come to Israel and say that they're Jewish because they have a lot of benefits here that they don't have in other places, and they want to be accepted. They should be able to live here, and there's the law of return. And if they're Jewish, they get all these benefits, and they get there are all kinds of benefits that they get. They get bituach lumi, they get a burial for free. All kinds of benefits of being Jewish, able to live over here. Other countries don't allow them in. Many Ukrainians, they want to say that they're Jewish. So whenever there's a lure that he should be Jewish, then the first Gemara applies that with Choshish maybe they have ulterior motive. Here the Gemara is going that there's nothing when it's a state that it's not beneficial to be Jewish superficially. So then we tell them, why do you want to be Jewish for? Don't you know the facts that Am Yisrael is debuyim? The word double usually means in sadness and pushed and overturned and torn apart, and there's many suffering coming upon them. So what's the noble answer? This is a fascinating Gemara. I think it should really be spent a lot of time on, but just in the Daf Yomi, we don't have time. But these words, I think, Rabbi Miller, used to put these words in bold. Yodei ani ve'eni kedai. I know and I'm not worthy. Rashi says, I'm not worthy to join in the suffering of Am Yisrael. It's a schus to be part of the suffering of Am Yisrael. That's the right noble answer that the guy is supposed to say. I know that the Jews are suffering, and it will be a schus to be part of their suffering. Of course, the suffering is only because what the Jews are, and what they're going to get in this again. And it's a schus to be able to even join in the suffering, not only to join in the good times, but it's a schus to join in their suffering. That deserves a lot of time. But then, if he says that answer, also miyad, then you accept him, and now we go through the process of accepting a convert. We tell them some of the mitzvahs. You don't have to tell them everything. Nowadays, the process is very different. They have to learn a lot, and they have to go a whole course in a couple of years. And I asked the Rabbanim why they do that. They say only because they have experience that they're not really serious about mitzvahs. They just want to become part of the Jewish people. And they think what a Jewish mean, whatever the Jewish means according to them. But they have to know that Jewish means to do the mitzvahs. And if they're not interested in the mitzvahs, we can't accept them. That's the reason why nowadays things have changed and the business makes it very hard. And they have to prove themselves and learn a long time and practice until we see that they're very serious. But halachically, really, the way it should have been is if he's serious, he comes in, even though he doesn't know anything, we just tell him a little bit of information, some of the easy mitzvahs, some of the hard mitzvahs. And also, we told them the punishment if someone doesn't give all these manasanim. Means besides, before we said that there's a benefit that he gets tzedakah, he also has to know that if he has money, he's going to have to give tzedakah. And more is going to say soon that might be a deterrent that he wouldn't want to become Jewish because he doesn't want to give so much tzedakah. But you tell him that when you become Jewish, you have to give all of these gleanings and my shikha, peya, my serani. So you tell him that also the financial responsibility of being Jewish. Also, you tell him also the punishment that if he transgresses, there's also punishment. For instance, we take them every day. Achalta chelev, you have to honest kares. Chalalta Shabbos, you have to honest skila. Till now, until you were Jewish, so you're allowed to eat chelev. If you eat chelev, no punishment. If you mechal Shabbos, no punishment. And even lachatchila, you're allowed to transgress all these things. But now you're going to become Jewish, so there are a lot of penalties. Achshav shachalta chelev, honest kares. Chalalta Shabbos, honest skila. If you can eat chelev from now on, then it's going to be a punishment of kares. And if you're going to be mechal Shabbos, then there's capital punishment, stoning. So we tell them all that what he's getting into. We should know what he's accepting. Also, you talk about the reward also. You don't just leave it hanging, the only bad. You tell them that, of course, it's worth to be Jewish if you're holding by it. So, of course, there's going to be reward. What's the reward? In Olam Haba. That Olam Haba is for the righteous. The Rambam says the righteous means Am Yisrael. Olam Haba is only for the Jews. So, there's a good reason you want to be Jewish. You have Olam Haba. But don't expect the reward in this world. The reward is in the world to come. Yisrael b'zman hazeh einam yicholim l'kabel below rov tova below rov puranis. I think the Pashup Shan the Gemara is coming to explain that how come we don't have reward in this world also, because it's not possible. Some change the gears and not b'zman hazeh. But yes, it says b'zman hazeh over here at the bottom line. It says b'zman hazeh, but some change it to b'olam hazeh. The Rosh and maybe the Rambam, they seem to say b'olam hazeh. The reason why there's no reward in this world, not b'zman hazeh, but b'olam hazeh, is because there's not enough good in the world. Is not Rov Tova, means that Am Yisrael and being in the human state of this world, it's not possible to get too much good. So the good is not going to be in this world. The good is going to be in Olam Haba. The Lord of Puranis also said it's not too much Puranis. The Rambam says that don't think that the punishments in this world are going to be so overly burdening that Am Yisrael is going to destroy, going to be perished. They're not going to perish. Am Yisrael is not going to perish. Means if you have the patience and the tolerance to do what Am Yisrael is doing, so it's a good investment. You become Jewish, you get Olam Haba. This world is problems, but it's passing and it's not the end of the story. So they tell him what he's getting into, and if he accepts, you don't push him too much. You don't make it too heavy. It means you don't try to push him away too much. Kibul love, kibul. If he accepted after all that, he says yes, I want. Malanos omiyad, you circumcise him right away. The Gemara is going to say all this right away is going to be. We'll see soon. And this is regular of circumcision always, that sometimes there might be pieces of skin that are essential. It's not cool, even though he was mostly circumcised, it's not enough. There are some tzitzin. The word tzitzin means a protruding piece of skin. So if halachically by a child also, same as Mila, if it would be considered something which is essential, so you have to do it again. You have to circumcise, you have to check it, and the mohel will fix up whatever he didn't do good enough. This rabbi after he gets healed, you wait a couple of days, as long as it takes until the circumcision is healed, and then they immerse him. How do you immerse him? That's the next part of the protocol. That b'shas tefillah, while he's immersing, so there are two Talmidei Chachamim that are there, and they inform him again, even though they told him already. That's what he accepted, but they say it again. The Mepharshim say that in order that he should be makabel. Not that he doesn't know it. It's not because he doesn't know it. He knows it already. But they say it again that b'shas the conversion, when he's told, now this is going to make the conversion. The Mila, we pass him that Mila is not enough, so he's not a convert yet. Even though he had Mila, it's not yet Jewish. But now that he's going to immerse, this is going to make him Jewish. So he has to have a Kabbalah b'shas ma'isa. So therefore, we tell him the mitzvahs again, and he says yes, and he's immersing with that acceptance of the mitzvahs. What? That was yesterday's sugya. Where do you find that a ger has to have tefillah? That was the sugya that some hold that the mila only and not tefillah, but we pass him to have tefillah also. And the one said it rush over there because when it says by Moshe Rabbeinu that he was mazeh by Yisroel Kesadam Ala'am, so there has to have tefillah also by Har Sinai. The mila was in Mitzrayim and the tefillah was by Har Sinai. That's the Gemara Dash. Yes, that's how we pass him. So here it says that after he did the immersion, so he's a full Jew. He's a 100% Jew. The Gemara is going to say what the Bryce is stressing about that. The Gemara is going to go through the whole Bryce soon. How about a woman? We're not going to have the men that are there by the mikvah. Women are the ones who take care of her in order to get her into the water. And then two Talmidei Chachamim are standing outside. That before we said if it's a man, so then Talmidei Chachamim are right there by the mikvah. But if it's a woman, so then the Talmidei Chachamim are outside. The Medina knows mitzvahs, the same thing as by the man, that they tell him again the mitzvahs and he accepts. So too the men, they're outside, but she hears their voices that they are saying about the mitzvahs that she's accepting, and she accepts, and then she immerses. Echad ger, echad eved meshuchah. All this we spoke about of conversion is both a ger, a goy who becomes a Jew, or eved meshuchah means eved Kanani, but now that he's getting freed, now he's also becoming a Jew. This is not talking about becoming an eved Kanani. That's also a process that he has to have Mila and Tefillah in order to become an eved Kanani. But now it's going a step further. After he's an eved Kanani and the master frees him, a freed eved is the same status as a ger. He also has to be tobel again in order to become Jewish. Till now he was an eved Kanani, now he's going to become Jewish. So he goes to the mikveh again, and the whole process is done there also. The Mocha now says, what kind of mikveh do you need? A kosher mikveh. Uvamokam shenida tobelas sham. Yes. Right. Yes, he has to have the process to become a Eved Kanani. He has to have Milan Tefillah in order to become a Eved Kanani. And now he's Meshach. He has to have a process to become Jewish now.
So what's the toughest numbers?
He had a meal already. Tomorrow, I didn't get to it, but I think it talks about it tomorrow. The same kind of mikveh you need, a kosher mikveh for a nida, that's the kind of mikveh you need for a ger to become a ger and eved meshuchra to become also Jewish. So you need a kosher mikveh. The whole davar shechotzeitz b'tefillah, chotzeitz b'ger. Also, as far as chatzitza goes, whatever would be a chatzitza by tefillah for taras, also chotzeitz b'ger, eved meshuchra, b'nida. That there's a din of chatzitza also. Here it's interesting. It talks about why do we have to go back to tilchas tumah v'tara, but the way the words say that it has all the chatzitza, as you find, but tumah also applies to a ger, an eved that's now is becoming a Jew, and also to a nida. You need a regular kosher mikvah, and also the dinim of chatzitza. So we finished the whole brayso. The brayso was pretty long since the beginning. It goes back to all this is a brayso, back to the beginning where we started that ger taner rabbanon ger shabal is guy b'zman hazeh. So this is the end of the brayso. Now the Gemara starts again. Is going to analyze the brayso. Top line on the screen. Ger shabal is guy. Omulo ma riseh shabasal is guy. That's the beginning of the brayso. We're not going to talk about that. But then, maybe also, then Modiam also makes us mitzvahs, chalas mitzvahs, mitzvahs chamuras. My time. How come you tell him all of this introduction that it's not so easy and you have to have all the mitzvahs? My time, the porish nifrosh. That if he doesn't want, so he should not want. We're not encouraging him to become a ger. We're not looking for gerim, and that's what the Gemara says that there's a problem in accepting gerim. We're not after running after gerim. Damri abchelbo chashim gerim yisrael kesapachas that gerim are difficult to am yisrael like a nega. The word sapachas is like it says in Parashas Mitzorah, sapachas hasei, sapachas abaheres. It's another word for a nega. Tichsiv v'nilva ger aleher v'nispachol beis Yaakov. So it's a drash. The pashut the word v'nispachol means to be added on, like a sapach. Sapach means in addition, also in modern Hebrew. But the more is mentioning that it's with sapachas, something that's difficult to have gerim, and therefore we're not after looking for gerim. Of course, the gerim tzedek, of course, the gerim tzedek are a great benefit to Am Yisrael, and that's David HaMelech comes from gerim. Grus is the classical ger, but there is in general there's a problem with gerim. Taisa has many pshatim over here. What's wrong with gerim? What is the difficulty? Many pshatim Taisa brings down. Some say that sometimes they don't know the mitzvahs well, and Am Yisrael learns from them. There's another pshat about Arvus that since Am Yisrael is responsible for each other, so that might be that they're doing bad, and Am Yisrael is going to suffer because of them. That's a question Taisa talks about. Another pshat is because that you have to have mishpachas miyuchasis be Yisrael in order for Hashras Hashchina. Another pshat Taisa says at the end is because that it's isser to paint them, and it's difficult. Any holy zom, and it might be that Am Yisrael would stumble in painting the ger, and that's very serious. There's another shot brought down at the bottom over here that Odiyesh Mefarshim, and this is in Tosfos. Who's this? Tosfos Shanim in the first white line. He says that the Tosfos also says sometimes that sometimes on the contrary, the ger are very makbid on the mitzvahs, and that is like it shows bad on the Jews. That those that are converts sometimes are even more makbid on the mitzvahs than the Jews are, so it looks bad to Am Yisrael. Whatever the pshat is, 5 pshatim over here, but we don't have to encourage gerim if they come, so then we accept them. But and then like it says in the parasha, we love them and they become almost like Am Yisrael. But we don't have to try to reach out that they should become. The next thing it says in the brayso was that you also tell them about the mitzvah to give manas aniyim. Umadia knows of leket shekolpeya my simoni my timer. So it brings Allah here that doesn't have to do with our subject that a goy when he steals is killed even on less than a Shabbat Pruta. That usually by a Jew, it's only of course a Jew is not killed at all. There's not this issue of stealing is not capital punishment. But by a guy, you also have mitzvah b'nei noach is capital punishment. But the point is, even pachas b'shavah pruta. By a Jew, less than a shavah pruta, they say is about 15 agavot nowadays, whatever the amount would be. That a Jew is he waives that. That's not so important to him. Less than a shava pruta nu. But by goy, the goyim are makbid on money. This seems to be the characteristic that the goyim are more makbid even on money, and therefore, Rashi explains that the point that he's going to have to give leket shikopeya ma'aser money comes out. We said once by all the manasanim, it comes out a person is giving 22% even without leket shikopeya, just from the ma'aser rishon. That's to the Levi, okay, and then you have also ma'aser sheni that goes to himself, but in Yerushalayim, and then ma'aser rani, and then you also have leket shikopeya. So a big percent of his money has to go to others. So that would be difficult. That would be considered a big deterrent. Besides the other things we speak about, that Shabbos and Chalev, other things that are punishable, but the fact more responsibilities. But the money, the financial responsibility of a Jew, that might be a big deterrent for a guy. So therefore, we do mention that also on the list, that there's a lot of chiyuvim about giving tzedakah. We don't try too hard to push him away. It means we do discourage him a little bit, but not too much. And that the Gemara says that you do discourage him a little bit, to tell him a little bit of what he's getting into. But once he says he wants, you don't push anymore. Where's the pasuk that says that? That's the drush we say from Rus. By Rus, the Gemara learns over there that the whole discussion between Rus and Nami, when Nami was trying to convince her to go back, same way Orpah did. When she was going back to Eretz Yisrael, her husband died, their husbands died, and she was going back from Moab to go back to Eretz Yisrael after the famine was over. So she was trying to discourage, and Orpah was discouraged, and Orpah went back, but Ruth was more, and once Naomi saw that being persistent to go with her, so then she stopped talking. So that was, we don't try to convince her to come. But once she said, yes, I want to come, so then you don't continue discouraging, then you accept. And now the Gemara says a drush. Now this might be in parentheses, but the main point that we wanted was to say, once you see misametzes, then you stop talking. But the Gemara is going to bring the whole drush over there, how it fits into the psukim. She was listening, someone in Mitzvahs Kalas, Mitzvahs Chamuras. She said that if you become Jewish, you're not allowed to go out of the Tchum. The Gemara is going to dashing the words. You don't see that in the pasuk. He doesn't answer. So, because we said, wherever you're going to go, I'm going to go. Means that you have limitations. How much you go? I'm not going to go further than you. Wherever you're going to go. And then she told her, Asa lan yichud. Yichud is Asa. So she said, from the answer, you can see what the question was. That wherever you're going to sleep, I'm going to sleep. If you're going to sleep without yichud, man, I'm also going to be there. We have 613 mitzvahs. Your nation is my nation. I'm not sure you see that in the nationhood, that has something to do with the 613 mitzvahs. I would have thought that is something else. It sounds more Amechami, sounds something about nationalism, to be part of the nation, about the mitzvahs. But the Gemara sees in that something about the mitzvahs. I don't have clarity on that. And then she told her, Nomi told Ruas, Asalan avodah zarah asa. So she said, your God is my God. I'm not going to take a God that you don't have. And then she told her, Nomi told Ruas, Abba Mises Nimsrul of Bezdin. There are 4 capital punishments. So she said, Bashet Musi Amus. I die the same way you do. If you die for Abba Mises Bezdin, I die for Abba Mises Bezdin. And then also based from Nimsrul of Bezdin, that there's different places to be buried. That people that are punished by Skilas Reifa, they have a special cemetery that they bury them, not together with other Jews. Also, they don't go in the regular cemetery. So, I'll be buried wherever you're going to be buried. Also, I accept everything. Once she accepted, so then she stopped discouraging her and she accepted her. So too, Bezdin doesn't push away too much. Once they told the ger, and the potential ger, and he accepted, so then they don't push away anymore, and they accept him as a ger. What do? The first thing is to circumcise right away. That says right away. As soon as he accepts, then they don't push it off. They don't tell him come back in 2 weeks. Right away, they've circumcised. My timer, shuya mitzvah lo mashina. We don't. What's the word? Delay mitzvah. That's it. We don't wait. Since we have opportunity to do the mitzvah, we do it right away. So I don't know if this means that we have a mitzvah to accept him, or he has a mitzvah, or the fact that it's a good thing to become Jewish. So we don't push it off like a mitzvah b'liyat chal tach mitzana. Don't push off, don't delay, don't procrastinate. This is the point of Jesus. Do it as soon as possible. And then it says, as far as the circumcision goes, of course, it has to be a regular circumcision that doesn't have any pieces of skin, any protrusions of skin that were not circumcised, and it's not a good circumcision. The Shtai would say even means the basar chofa, that some say that it means even below the corona, also the circle of skin which is around that. That's also maybe called Torah. Machlokes in the poskim. But if there's basar means the basar orla. If the foreskin is some of it is left and it's covering most of the height, I think Mark's going to say in a minute, so then it's even it's a small piece of skin, but since it's going up and it's the covering robe of the corona, so it's not considered circumcised. A Kohen who's not allowed to eat truma, whatever is negated to, it's negated to circumcision, it's negated to a Kohen, is not allowed to eat truma, it's negated to here, a ger that he has to have circumcision. So if there's some piece of skin which is covering most of the corona, so it would not be a good circumcision. The height. And the Gemara in Shabbos talks about also the robe heketla, not only the height, also the circumference. You have to make sure you get rid of all the pieces of skin that are going to interfere with being a good circumcision. Then you wait until he gets healed. Again, it says miyad as soon as possible, but you do wait until he gets healed. You don't immerse him right away with the circumcision when it's still a raw operation. You don't immerse him until after he's healed. My time the maya marzu maka, because the water is going to somehow, I don't know if the word marzu is going, but it's going to be, it's not good for it. It's going to cause it to swell, whatever the point is. It might get infected. So you don't immerse him until after it heals. Then it says during the immersion, should be there by the immersion. The kasha is we said you have to have three. Now the truth is that the one before was talking about the three might have been only by the Kabbalah mitzvah. Stacy says that a couple of pages ago that the din of three that he's talking about is only by Shas the Kabbalah that we had today, Ushvatatem, Mishpat, that you have to have three people. That's talking about the Kabbalah mitzvahs. But here the Gemara says by the immersion also. The Gemara wants that the immersion also should have to have three. Even here it says only two. Rabbi Yochanan, the Tana, to Nishlosh, and you have to change it over here also. Rabbi Yochanan told the Tana that the one who said over the Brisa that change it to, it's a mistake. It's not two, it has to be three. And you have to have three Tamid Chachamim. You have to have a Bezdin, B'shas the Kabbalah mitzvahs, and the initial discussion if he's accepting the mitzvahs, and then B'shas the immersion also you have to have three Tamid Chachamim, not two. It's a mistake. Not two, you have to have three. Once he immersed, he's a full Jew. What does it mean a full Jew? The Hadarbe, if he goes back to his bad ways, that he accepted, then after a while he goes back to becoming a goy. So there's no such thing. Once a Jew, always a Jew. There's no way to convert. There's a way to become a goy to a Jew, but there's no way that a Jew can become a goy. And even if he goes back to his old ways, it's like a Jew who's sinning. Umakadish ba bas Yisrael mumma krina bay ve kiddush of kiddushin. If he would have gone back to his old ways, and then he would, for instance, he would marry a Jewish girl. So it's not called that a goy. It's not called like a goy that married a Jewish girl that is nothing. But it's a Jew. He's Yisrael Mummer, and it's considered Kiddushin. So once he's a Jew, always a Jew. There's no way to get out of it. No bank, no return. Once he decides to become a Jew, he's a Jew. And if he, of course, it means at the time that he really meant it. Maybe if he didn't mean it, maybe he's thinking he really didn't mean it at the time. Maybe it's not. Maybe the Makreya. We see it wasn't a good Kabbalah. But if it was a good Kabbalah at the time, and then he went sour, so then he's considered a Jew. He's considered a bad Jew. He's not considered a guy anymore. First white line. That's all. So that's as far as we go for today. The rest of it goes now into Evan Meshukra, which I didn't prepare further. So that's all for today. Yashikor. Thank you, everybody. To have a review. Let's see. Let's try to take the Gemara and get the highlights. We talked about both in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz. We do accept the ger. There was a machlokes. Don't think that in Eretz Yisrael he's doing it for ulterior motive, and don't think in Chutz La'aretz he's going to probably go back. Either way, you can accept him in Eretz Yisrael. Chutz La'aretz. There's a question about if he comes and says on his own that he was Magai in a certain bezin, do you believe him or not? Rabbi Yehuda says in Chutz La'aretz you do believe him because he has no ulterior motive, but we pass like the Rabbana that even Eretz Yisrael, even Chutz La'aretz also, you do have to bring proof. The Gemara now says it doesn't have to be mamash proof, but it has to be at least Eidim that heard that he was Magai in a certain bezin. Maybe we don't pass like that. Maybe passing has to be mamash being Eidim that say that they know for sure, for a fact, that he was Megayer in which Bezdin. It says Ushvat the temple, and then we hold you have to have three people, and it's much that it's Ma'akev that you have to have three people in order to make him into a ger. If he comes and says there's Megayer by himself on his own, so he's not a ger. But then the Gemara talks about if he's only believed as far as himself, maybe as far as his children, he doesn't have authority to trust to passel them. And even though we pass him like Rabbi Yehuda that he does have authority to say that his child's a mamzer or a cholo. But as far as saying a goy, so Rav Nachman Yitzchak says that once he says he's a goy, so that he doesn't have any belief. He's not authorized to say testimony. So if he says that he's a goy, he's only believed on himself, not on his children. As far as a mamzer and a cholo, the Gemara says that we do trust him on his children, but not on his grandchildren. And Taisus learns once he has grandchildren, he's not believed even on his children anymore because you can't divide between the two.
Why didn't you just check his wife?
The Tais has the kasha. That's a good kasha. Tais has the kasha. Has nothing to do with him. His being a goy doesn't make a difference because if his wife is Jewish, they're Jews even if he's a goy, and if his wife is a goy, they're goyim even if he's a Jew. Tais has the kasha. Tais has a terrorist that it only has relevance according to Yehuda. That's going to hold that the Eved Abbas Yisrael is a Vlad Mamza, but we don't hold like that. We hold that Vlad is kosher, so that wouldn't make a difference. As in this particular scenario, wouldn't make a difference. The next Gemara talks about the whole Seder of Hayim Kabbalah Ger, and the first thing is that you tell him, you discourage him, tell him how difficult Jews have it nowadays. You push him away a little bit, and the noble answer would be, "Odeani beni kedai, I'm not worthy of joining in their tzaros." And you tell him some of the mitzvahs kalos, chamuros, and also the chiv manas aniyim, that even though it's hard to go him to give tzedakah, so you tell him that might be a deterrent. And you tell him also the punishment that now about kares and skila you might be getting into. And you also tell him the schar mitzvahs also and olam haba. You don't leave him hanging. You say it is a worthwhile investment if you want to do it, but you have to wait for olam haba. And you don't push him after that too much, like it says, that we don't medactic too much. After that, if he agrees, so then you you do the circumcision right away. Shui mitzvah lo mashina. You don't push off. You do it as soon as possible. Of course, make sure that the meal is a good meal. It shouldn't be any tzitzin ha'ma'akvin, and which is rov go b'shel Torah. And you wait until he gets healed from that, in order that it shouldn't cause any infection or inflammation. And then you immerse him. The Gemara comes out, it has to be 3 Tamid Chachamim, not only 2. You tell him some of the mitzvahs b'shas ma'aseh that he should accept the mitzvahs b'shas the immersion, and it has to be a kosher mikvah, and also no chatzitza, the same halachas as by Anida and by Tuma. And if it's a woman that's converting, so then the women help her to do the mikvah, but the bezdin stays outside and they say the mitzvahs, and she hears it and she accepts it. Once he became Jewish, he's Jewish and there's no return, means that if he does Averis now, he's a regular Jew that's doing Averis, and his Kedushin would be Kedushin. And the Gemara also dashes all the Psukim of Rus about the things that she answered. Everything you can see what Naomi was trying to discourage her about responsibilities that she's taking upon herself, and she accepted everything. And once she accepted it, then she stopped trying to discourage her. Yashikach, everybody. Thank you. A good Shabbos, everybody. And 9 o'clock, Pasoi Shabbos. Thank you. Yashikach, everybody.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.